All right, so my name, Rob EPIFANIA. My story, I was always a high-level athlete. I played basketball up into college. I played volleyball when I was working full-time. 2010, I was riding my motorcycle, got hit by a car, head on. So broken pelvis, dislocated knee, ruptured hamstring, IT band. A lot of fun surgeries and rehabilitation getting past that. So this is not a house arrest bracelet. It is a brace that holds my foot up because I cannot physically lift my foot. So anything you guys see me do, like I'm doing it with a disability. After the recovery from that, 2011, I found defensive tactical classes. I took one and I became hooked, and I took every class this guy offered for a year and a half. His name was Chris Fry. He ran Modern Defensive Training Systems. He runs Progressive Force Concepts in Las Vegas now. Within that time frame, I got my instructor certifications. I started helping him from 2012 until he left for Vegas in 2019. I started my company, SPC, in 2018. I also started competing in that year. 2021, I hit Grandmaster. I've been top 20 at Nationals. I've been top 12 at Nationals, and so on and so forth. And my passion is helping you guys become the best you guys can be. So if I can help you guys get to where you want to be sooner than it took me, that's my whole intention. Anything we're doing today, if you have a question, ask me. If you want me to go over something again, ask me. Like, I'm here for you guys, like I said. Cool? All right. What I hear, it seems like a lot of you guys want to do some fundamental stuff. So maybe we'll spend an hour and a half working on fundamental stuff. So I'll talk about how I do grip. We'll work on presenting the gun. We'll work on some recoil control stuff. I would like to get into I think transitions would be the next kind of segue that we would get over to. Just understanding the breakdown of the transitions and putting them together. Doing simplified sequence work, like simplified stage work in static settings to start. We'll do that for an hour, like about an hour round robin style, and then we start getting into movement. All right, we'll talk about entries, exits, that kind of thing. Give you guys a chance to work on that, and then we will try to make sure we leave enough time for a stage. Does that sound wrong to anybody? Josh is ready to raise his hand. He's like no.
Good to go.
So that sounds cool, yeah? Okay, awesome. So let's discuss the abbreviated version of my grip, okay? I think that's going to be valuable to some of you guys. So grip, talk about principles, right? They apply to everybody with every gun. How Rich applies it might be different than how Mark applies it. How I apply it on Rich's gun might be different than how he applies it on his gun. Make sense? But the principles, if you guys listen to multiple instructors, you take classes from multiple instructors, they're always going to tell you the way that works for them and the way that works probably best for their students. However, the thing that you guys should all be listening to is when you hear people say similar things, because that's going to cue you into the key for success, and then you take that and make it work for you. So there are probably going to be things that I say that Dave talked about yesterday. There are going to be things that Dave said yesterday that I talk about differently. You know, it's taking the commonalities and really keying into those things. Make sense? That's any you watch a bunch of YouTube videos, like you're always looking for the patterns. You find the patterns. Those are the things that are going to make that make everybody successful to some degree. All the successful people do it. However, and then it's taking it and playing around with making it your own way. Right? Like my grip, when I talk about it, is a combination of 4 or 5 different ideas combined with my own spin. So anyway, 3 principles. First principle is friction. We want to make sure we have as much contact on the gun as possible. We don't want to have any gaps. Recoil's like water. If you give it a place to go, right, when you're shooting slow, it's not going to matter so much, but when you start shooting fast, it's going to try to work its way into every single gap that you have. That's when you're going to see a recoil path that is very erratic, and the gun is just not going to behave well, right? So we want to make sure we have as much skin contact on the gun, and by that, we want to make sure we're fully surrounded, fully encompassed in skin. Make sense? Straightforward. Enhancing friction. Steel guns, you can put more aggressive grip panels on. plastic guns, you could put things like silicone carbide, Talon grips, stippling, a bunch of different ways to do it. Okay. For anybody who's competing, chalk is a nice value add. It's not a necessity, but it does help you when your grip is a little off or your hands are sweaty, right? I would recommend, if you go that route and you want to start using chalk, use it so you get used to how everything feels, because it does, your equipment does feel different when your hands are a little bit more chalky. But don't get used to it so much that you have to depend on it, right? If you have to depend on it and it's a rainy day, like I found out in 2020, it doesn't work so well. That chalk becomes mush, and it actually makes everything worse. And then you're like, oh man, I don't know what to do. So be able to do it with and without it.
What was it at that? Like, did it get more slippery?
It got more slippery.
Oh,
yeah.
And if you didn't
Plus, I was used to training with it all the time, so I'm used to a certain feel. All of a sudden, I put it on, it's all mush, and I'm like, and I'm shooting in the middle of a match. Yeah. So it was. After that moment, I started removing how much I use it. Right, currently speaking right now, I don't use it for training, I use it for matches. Because I get the value add while training in the worst case scenario. For someone who's new to that chalk experience, you do want to understand how it feels when you're gripping your stuff with chalk, because it does feel different. Does that make sense to you guys? Cool. Principle number 2 is leverage. We want to maximize our leverage on the gun. We want to minimize the gun's leverage on us. If I could hold this gun like this and have it function properly, why would I want to hold it that way? Recoils direct into your hand, right? There would be no muzzle flip, it would go back and forth, right? Now we can't do that, so we want to get as close to this line as possible without interfering with the controls, okay? Web of the hand contacts high on the back strap, the knuckle of the middle finger contacts trigger guard, so we got that nice and full there. We have the gap here, which we can fill with the chicken drum of our support hand. And lastly, index finger knuckle contacts the trigger guard, and through the leverage in the elbows applies upward pressure on the trigger guard. Why? Why would I apply upward pressure on the trigger guard? Correct. Lauren's been through this once before. Right, so when the gun goes off, when it hits the rearward most travel, it's going to rotate up. What happens when it closes? It wants to go forward. So that little bit of upward pressure resists that muzzle dip. Make sense? Most people haven't heard that part. Now,
do you mind just put a camera so I can capture everything?
Sure.
Do you mind using this?
Sure. Yeah. Does cycle? No. Oh, it does cycle. Fancy. Okay. Okay. Well, now I don't really need it, but I'll need it in a little bit here. Okay, last principle is efficiency. We want to be efficient with our structure behind the gun so that we make more effective use of the work we're putting in, the pressures and such, okay? Now, starting from the elbows back, I like to be what I call neutral, meaning I'm just doing what I need to do to hold the gun in front of my face and not get pushed back from recoil. Only thing I've added more recently, and this is this year actually, is a little bit slight forward bias of the shoulders. So I push the shoulders a little bit more forward because I find that provides a little bit more structure behind the gun. I didn't talk about that in May, but I'm doing a lot more of that now. So, a little bit forward with the shoulders, but I don't want to be hunched up. I don't want to be pulling down. I don't want to pulling back, right? I don't want to be doing anything unnecessary. Holding the gun up, slight forward bias of the shoulders. Stance-wise, a little wider in shoulder width, bend my knees, stick my butt out, right? Now, what happens to people when you tell, who are instructors here? Who instructs people? What happens when you tell someone typically to bend their knees? What do they do?
Yeah, they do.
Right. They do this and their back straightens up, right? So watch the back line of my shoulders, even with this light little plastic gun. Right, so if you want, you can slide over a little bit so you can record it. Right, if I bend my knees but my back is really straight, watch my shoulders. Can you see that, Paul? Shoulders are getting pushed back. Right. What happens when you're getting rocked back when you're just pushing the gun out, or when you get rocked back by recoil? You're going to continue to go back, and what are you going to try to do? slam forward. So you're going to see this very erratic, like up and down pattern. Never mind if you get hand tension or anything like that, right? Simple solution, right? Bend our knees, stick our butt out, and now everything presents exactly the same. Make sense to you guys? Plus, when you're shooting under recoil, you're going to see that you don't get moved around as much. Drawing the gun, right? You want to draw the gun quicker. Now I can present the gun quickly and be ready to fire more immediately. All little efficiencies that add up to a lot of time savings. Make sense so far? Questions? Okay. Now, going forward, elbows forward. This is where all the pressures and leverages are generally applied. With the elbows, I'd like them to be stiff but not locked. Locking is not good for your joints, and you lose the ability to move the gun around. Creates a lot of tension. Okay. Best way to understand this position, where you need to get to, if you actually physically locked your arms out and you pull in about a ½ inch, you go from locked to a healthy bend, right? Elbows are always going to absorb shock. So a straighter line is generally going to have the gun behave better. What about this? What is this going to do? Right? Yep, you're going to have a nice, maybe nicely behaved gun here, muzzle flip wise. That's done from the wrists, but the elbows are going to bounce like this. That's going to cause problems. Okay, excess amount of effort needing to put the gun back on target. Cool. Last thing with the elbows, if you imagine upside down horseshoe in your hand and you try to straighten it out, see how the elbows rise up a little bit more? That's going to pinch a little bit at the top of the gun, give you a little bit more leverage up top. Don't go so far that your hand breaks off the gun. Just a little bit's all you need. Cool. And how much you can rotate your elbows depends on your body, right? Wider shoulders can't go as far out, and your grip strength. Stronger grip means you can stay connected to the gun as you twist on the gun. But it doesn't take much, honestly. 9mm recoils are like 9 pounds of force. So we don't need that much effort. We just need to be putting everything in the right place and be efficient about the efforts that we're putting in. Cool so far. Okay. Wrists. We want to stiffen the wrists to resist the recoil that's happening, right? Easiest way to understand that is to literally cam your wrist down. Okay, with the support hand, that's easy to do, and also engages the bottom forearm muscle here. You can adjust it on the gun. Now, support hand, that's not always comfortable for people to have this sort of wrist angle, right? So whether or not you choose to use this, the main thing is if you grip hard enough with your support hand, you get that wrist stiffness for free. Okay, so if it's uncomfortable to have this, straight wrist is totally fine as long as you're gripping as hard as you can. Make sense so far? So like, yeah, if I'm loose here and I tighten up, it stiffens up just fine. The angle applies a little bit of passive resistance to muzzle flip, if that's helpful for some of you guys, but it's not a necessity. Make sense? Does anybody want to feel like what that camming feels like? Rich, why don't you come here? I'm going to make you do this. So if I do this and I hold you straight, you're going to rotate my wrist that way. So this way, towards me. See how easy it is for you to do it? Yeah. I'm holding you firm, right? Yeah. It's easy for him to do. But if I just engage my wrists, my forearm muscle, I'm not even holding you now. Right? Anybody else want to feel what that feels like? Don't need to. Okay, cool. So, support hand can be adjusted on the gun. With the firing hand, I found the easiest way to do that is to actually engage the bottom 2 fingers in the firing hand. Okay? What that does is that allows us to grip as hard as we want to, locks the wrist in place, stiffens the wrist up, and it also keeps this finger free to do what it needs to do. Right? A lot of people, you hear firing hand tension, right? Like firing hand tension, you think the whole, like people say the whole hand, this finger is not meant to move independently of the whole hand, which is true. But if you go a little further into it, it's actually the middle finger that affects it the most. So you guys can all do this with me. If you hold your hand up, keep your index finger still and move your pinky as best you can. Pretty easy, relatively easy to do compared to everything else. Middle ring finger, do the same thing. For me, it's a little harder to do it this way, but yeah, I can get it to work. Now do your middle finger. Really hard to stop that finger from moving, right? So this is the one that matters the most. Okay, so if I grip at the bottom here, I can grip as tight as I want to. and not affect that operation of the gun. Make sense? Anybody got trigger freeze before? Right? Trigger freeze is a symptom of the whole hand getting so tight that this finger locks up in place. Or you're so used to really getting like exactly on the reset that when that tension happens, it causes you to short stroke the trigger. Make sense? Cool. Okay. Gun position in the hand. This is something that's very, very useful for most of my students, most of the people that I work with. If you trace your forearm bone up into the palm, right, this is where I want the gun to sit, the back strap of the gun to sit if possible. If I can make the gun sit like that, that's going to be ideal. So when I pull my fingers into the palm, it's fully supported in the back here. Okay, does this actually cycle? No. No. Huh? Doesn't really have a trick. Yeah, that's what they do, right? So, well, I don't know why I'm doing that. I don't need the dot for this. So if I do this, put the gun in here, bottom two fingers, and I press the trigger, you're going to see there's not really any movement. Doesn't matter how hard I press the trigger. For anybody, you guys can see that? No movement. You guys can see that? There's no movement. It's very easy to press the trigger reasonably aggressive because the back strap of the gun is supported. Now, if I make an adjustment and I move it over, so now there's this nice gap in here. You guys can all see that? Same trigger press. Can you see the movement? If you find that you're going up and right as a right-hand shooter, do we have any lefties here? No? Paul, you're right-handed. Up and right for a right-handed shooter is indicative that firing position is wrong in the hand. When that happens, take it from here, shift it into the palm, and then you'll get that trigger press immediately fixed. Right? Now, if for some reason, does anybody have trouble reaching the trigger on their gun? No? Everybody good? Okay. Because if you did, I would give you a solution if you couldn't physically put it there without having a problem reaching the trigger.
Why don't you give us that solution anyway?
All right. So, let's say you couldn't do anything but this. You couldn't, you moved the gun here and now you can't reach the trigger in an effective manner. So you have to do this. What you need to do then is you need to just pull the fingers into the palm at an angle. It's not going to be straight, it's going to be at an angle. So that same thing that causes this, when I apply pressure the right way, fixes it. See that? That's not the ideal solution because we're pulling the gun at an angle, but it is a solution that does work.
I'm a non-dominant, or left-eye dominant,
Mm-hmm.
so my gun position is a little bit. It's harder to get that palm really behind the grip, so that it.
That's going to work. That's something for you to play with then. Okay.
Same. I'm sorry. No. You go to. No, same here. What like are you? If you're like a little.
So instead of pulling straight into the palm, I'm pulling at a slight angle. So I'm basically trying to put these fingers in here. So you're gonna adjust how you're applying pressure from straight
like,
to slight angle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gripping more on the outside of the fingers in.
Yeah. So I'm still gripping through here. I'm not gripping fingertips, but I'm pushing it in a direction that supports the gun in the palm. Does that make sense to you? Make sense to you guys? Cool. How tight do we grip the gun?
I have a question real quick before you move on.
Please.
So I've been working to scoot this hand out a little bit,
Uh-huh.
my strong hand, just so I can get a little bit of purchase on that back strap on the palm here. Is that?
No, that's not incorrect. If it works, if you feel it's effective for you, it's a valuable tool.
Okay.
Right? So I have people that I know that do it that way.
Okay.
When I try to do it that way, I put a lot of input into the gun that's not necessary. That's me because I'm used to doing it a certain way. They're used to doing it in a way that works for them. Anything that you guys want to try to adjust, if it's worth investing the time into, like that method will be successful. Just like my method is successful for me. You just have to be willing to invest the time into it. Because what that does, that puts a little more structure behind the gun with the support hand too. The problem for me is I feel when I'm applying pressure, like I'm disturbing the gun. For me, I have very high level shooter friends. They do that and it works really well for them. You know, so that's just something. If you're continuing down that path, continue down that path. Right? Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Okay. How hard do we grip the gun? As hard as you can? With what hand? Both hands? Or what do you think? What about both hands? What about the firing hand?
With the last two fingers.
So sport hand, I think we all agree, grip hard. Like you can't really grip hard enough with the sport hand. You can always apply as much as you can. Right? That's generally going to be favorable for most people, as most people don't grip tight enough. Okay? Yeah, look, we get a chance to use this little guy. So, the firing hand. This is what needs to happen. Okay? This gun is sitting here in my hand, and you guys want to get where you can see this? You can move on over. This will be useful for all you guys. So you can see here, the gun is resting in my hand. I'm not gripping it. Okay? See how it wobbles? Like you see, it moves in my hand. I have to grip it hard enough that stops. Okay? However, when it stops, can you see this, my wrist? See how that moves? I need to grip a little bit towards the bottom here, ring and pinky finger, so that whole thing stops and everything moves as one unit. Anybody want to feel what that feels like?
You guys should. It's fun. Sure.
Come on over, Chris. So, okay, you have a daughter?
Yes.
Okay. Daughter's boyfriend comes over. Hey, Mr. Chris, how are you? What are you gonna think? What do you think?
Yeah.
Right.
Get out, right?
Yeah, get out. Right. Anybody else? This is especially good for people who have daughters. Right. Hey, Officer Paul. Right. Oh yeah. Right. George is very curious now. Hey, George.
Like clown.
Right. Wet noodle handshake. Right. Just this very. That's what's needed. What you want to do depends on what makes you feel mentally comfortable that you can manage recoil without issue, meaning you could hold still, right? For me, that's more like this.
Yep.
Right? For me, that's more like this. Right? This is yeah. Hey man, I want this guy. You know, I want this guy part of the family, right? My wife's family is very very thankful. But so yeah, so it's meant it's user subjective to what makes you feel mentally comfortable that you're going to be able to manage recoil without an issue. Right? The more you feel that you're prepared to handle recoil, the more you relax. The more you relax, the more you hold still. The more you hold still, the more accurate you are. The more accurate you are, and the better the gun behaves, the faster you're going to be able to shoot. Make sense? Cool. Any questions on all that? Okay. Last thing we'll discuss, and we'll start going through some exercise for this, is presenting the gun. Who has a trouble with their index sometimes? Right, the dot's not always there. You do a little shake, right? What I'd like you guys to remember is this: fingers, palm, pressure, leverage. It's a 4-step process. Okay. Fingers. When we have the gun out, our fingers contact where we want it to go. Okay. This sets the leverage point for everything else to happen to get a better grip. Okay. A lot of people will do the knife hand. A lot of people will do the palm first. Right? Especially like more tactical defensive people. You'll see a lot of times, and I did this in the beginning too, palm goes first and fingers wrap around. You can't generate the same amount of leverage with that. Come here for a sec, Mr. Sean. So if I go backwards, and I'll talk the rest. So I contact the palm, fingers, and push forward. You see there's no difference? Mm-hmm. But if I go the opposite way,
oh yeah.
Big difference, yeah. Right? We'll talk about that in a sec. So fingers contact first sets the leverage point. Palm contacts the grip panel. Pressure, and now fingers and palm can touch fractions of a second from each other, but it has to be that first. That's the problem I have that's the challenge with the knife hand, is sometimes if you go like this, you may sequence it wrong. You can't really build any leverage on it. Okay? So fingers touch first. If you do the knife hand, it's fine. Make sure your fingers contact before the palm does. Okay? Fingers, palm, pressure is applied. And the way that I apply pressure is by pulling the fingers into the palm and pushing the palm into the fingers. So it looks kind of like that versus just straight. Guys see what that looks like?
You're rotating too.
Yeah, you're rotating the wrist and you're starting to rotate the elbow with that, which happens to be the last part. So fingers contact, palm contacts, pressure's applied, gun is starting to move out to target. At that point, leverage, elbows are rotated to pinch at the top. And what you'll find is that when you do that correctly, my grip is ready to shoot here. I can fully shoot full speed here, whereas I have that much to go up for the rest of it. Make sense? Last thing, something that seems to work for me, I push the gun more out than I do up. You ever see, and some of you guys might do this, but when you present the gun, you get this. Couple things that happen with that. Not only do you have vertical displacement of the gun rising to target, but you also have rotational displacement. If you shoot too early, what does that mean? Could be high, could be in the head, you could, you know, boom headshot, right? But yeah, but it could be off the target too. It could be over the shoulder. We could have a problem there. Okay. Plus, your grip can't really be ready until you're almost fully on target. Okay. That makes a big difference. Just in the same way. Yeah, have you ever seen the guy that goes like real up and real out like this? For one, this is not the most efficient path. But two, your grip can't really be ready. You might be able to see your dot, but it's hard to really shoot aggressively that way. So think about pushing the gun more out than up. Right, so for me, yeah, I'm doing it here for the camera. Right, I'm gonna push more out and then let everything rise up there at the end. Make sense to you guys? Anybody want to feel the difference in leverage? Like I did with Sean, the little hand holding thing. No? Cool. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll start doing some exercises that get us started with that process. They're called 50-50 drills. We're gonna do one live, one dry. Okay, everybody can get their ammo, eyes and ears, and we'll come out here, we'll start doing stuff.